Have you ever planted an expensive flower only to watch it bloom for 5 days and then turn into a boring green bush for the rest of the year? What if I told you there is a plant that completely breaks the rules of normal gardening? A plant that bursts into vibrant color in early June and refuses to quit until the autumn leaves start falling. Today, we are talking about woodland sage, scientifically known as Salvia nemorosa. It is the absolute superstar of summer gardens. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to turn your yard into a non-stop blooming paradise with almost zero hard work. But here is the crazy hook. The biggest mistake people make with this plant is actually treating it too well. Yes, you heard me right. Giving this flower too much love will actually ruin it. Are you guilty of overwatering or overfeeding your outdoor plants? Let me know in the comments right now. Be honest. Now, let us dive into the secret life of the hardest-working flower in the world. To truly understand why this plant is virtually indestructible, we need to look at where it comes from. Woodland sage is native to a massive area stretching across Central Europe and Western Asia. For thousands of years, this resilient little herb grew wild in open meadows, along dusty forest edges, and in rocky fields. It did not have the luxury of automated sprinkler systems or expensive chemical fertilizers. It had to survive baking hot summers, freezing cold winters, and long periods without a single drop of rain. Because of this harsh history, modern Salvia nemorosa has evolved into a botanical tank. It is a proud member of the mint family, which is famous for producing tough, aromatic plants. Over the last century, passionate botanists and plant breeders fell in love with its natural endurance. They began selecting the best wild varieties to create the stunning, brightly colored garden cultivars we have today. So, when you put this plant in your yard, you are planting thousands of years of survival instinct. Let us start with the most famous feature of woodland sage, the continuous summer bloom. Most garden flowers are sprinters. They put all their energy into one massive show that lasts maybe 2 or 3 weeks. But this sage is a marathon runner. It begins its spectacular display in early summer. It pushes up dozens of tall, elegant spikes covered in hundreds of tiny, tightly packed flowers. And it just keeps going. The color lasts through the blistering heat of July. It pushes through the humid dog days of August. It only starts to slow down when the crisp autumn air arrives. Imagine stepping out onto your front porch every single morning for 4 straight months, and being greeted by a massive wave of deep violet or bright pink color. It is like having a floral fireworks show in slow motion. This is the ultimate solution for anyone who wants their home to look professionally landscaped without having to replant new annuals every single month. Now, let us talk about water, or rather, the lack of it. There is a huge myth in the gardening world that beautiful flowering plants need to be watered every single day. This is completely false when it comes to woodland sage. In fact, this plant thrives on neglect. Once its roots are established in the ground, it becomes incredibly drought-tolerant. Picture a sweltering hot afternoon in mid-August. The grass is turning brown. Your hydrangeas look sad and droopy. But your salvia? It is standing tall, blooming its heart out and looking like it is enjoying a day at the beach. This makes it the perfect choice for busy people. If you want to go away on vacation for 2 weeks, you do not have to beg your neighbors to come over and water your garden. The sage will be perfectly fine waiting for you to get back. It is a fantastic way to lower your summer water bill while still having the best-looking yard on the street. You might be wondering what kind of magical, expensive soil you need to buy to make this happen. Here is another amazing plot twist. Woodland sage actually prefers poor soil. If you plant it in heavy, rich, muddy soil that stays wet all the time, the roots will rot. The plant will literally drown. It loves sandy soil, rocky soil, and gravelly spots where other plants struggle to survive. Think about its wild ancestors growing on rocky European hillsides. That is what it wants in your yard. The most important rule is drainage. The water must be able to flow away quickly after a rainstorm. You can even mix a bag of cheap construction sand or small pebbles into your garden bed before planting to make it happier. This is a massive relief for beginners. You do not need a degree in chemistry to balance the soil nutrients. Just dig a hole, make sure the water drains, and let the plant do its thing. Sunlight is the ultimate fuel for this perpetual blooming machine. To get the maximum number of flowers, woodland sage demands full sun. That means it needs at least 6 to 8 hours of direct, unfiltered sunlight every single day. If you try to cheat and plant it in the shade under a big oak tree, you will be very disappointed. In the shade, the stems get weak and floppy. They stretch out desperately looking for light, and eventually, they just fall over and lay flat on the muddy ground. But when you put it in the blazing sun, something magical happens. The stems grow thick, strong, and perfectly upright. The flower spikes stand straight like colorful soldiers at attention. The colors actually become deeper and more vibrant the more sun they get. If you have a spot in your yard that gets so hot it bakes everything else to death, that is exactly where you should plant your salvia. Let us talk about a secret technique used by professional gardeners in England. It is called the Chelsea chop. This sounds like a wrestling move, but it is actually a brilliant pruning trick. Around late May, just before the plant is getting ready to bloom, you take a pair of sharp scissors. You literally chop the entire plant down by about 1/3 of its height. It feels terrifying to cut down a healthy green plant, but here is why you do it. Cutting the top forces the plant to branch out from the sides. Instead of growing one tall stem with one flower, it grows 3 or 4 shorter stems, each with its own flower. It makes the plant much bushier, completely prevents it from flopping over in the wind, and actually multiplies the total number of blooms. It delays the first flowers by a couple of weeks, but the resulting explosion of color is absolutely worth the wait. It is a pro move that anyone can do. Even though woodland sage blooms for a long time naturally, you can force it to give you a massive second wave of flowers. The technique is called deadheading, and it is incredibly easy. Sometime in mid-summer, usually late July, the first big flush of flowers will finally start to look brown and tired. The plant is trying to make seeds. You do not want it to make seeds. You want it to make more flowers. So, you grab your garden shears and cut all those old, faded flower spikes right off. You want to cut them down to where you see new, fresh green leaves starting to grow on the stem. By removing the old flowers, you trick the plant. It thinks, "Oh no, I did not make any seeds. I better try again." Within 2 or 3 weeks, it will push up a brand new batch of bright purple spikes. Giving your plant this quick summer haircut guarantees your garden stays colorful all the way to Halloween. If you care about the environment, this next fact will make you very happy. Woodland sage is an absolute magnet for essential pollinators. When this plant is blooming, it turns your yard into a busy airport for wildlife. Bumblebees, honeybees, and dozens of species of butterflies will travel from miles away to visit your garden. The tiny, tubular shape of the individual flowers is perfectly designed by nature to hold rich, sweet nectar. In North America, it is even a favorite stop for hummingbirds. Watching a tiny, emerald-green hummingbird hover over a spike of purple sage is one of the greatest joys of summer. By planting just 1 or 2 of these perennials, you are creating a crucial food station for the insects and birds that keep our local ecosystems healthy. You get a beautiful landscape, and Mother Nature gets a much-needed helping hand. It is the ultimate win-win situation for any homeowner. Now, let us address a very common nightmare for gardeners: deer and rabbits. There is nothing worse than spending money and time on a beautiful garden, only to wake up and find that local wildlife ate it all as a midnight snack. This is where the mint family genetics come to the rescue. The leaves of woodland sage contain strong natural oils. When you brush your hand against the leaves, they release a distinct, earthy, spicy scent. To humans, it smells fresh and interesting. But to deer and rabbits, it smells absolutely disgusting. It messes with their sensitive noses. They will walk right past a juicy bush of salvia to go eat your neighbor's expensive hostas instead. This makes it an incredibly valuable tool for landscape design. You can actually plant a border of sage around your more delicate flowers to act like a smelly, colorful fortress. It is natural, chemical-free pest control at its finest. Winter survival is another reason this plant is a champion. Woodland sage is incredibly cold-hardy. It can easily survive freezing temperatures and heavy snow down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. When the freezing weather hits in late autumn, the top part of the plant simply dies back and turns completely brown. It looks dead, but it is just sleeping. all the energy is pulled down deep into the thick, tough root system hidden safely underground. The snow actually acts like a cozy blanket, insulating the roots from extreme freezing winds. You do not need to wrap it in burlap. You do not need to dig it up and bring it inside the garage. You literally just leave it alone. It takes care of itself all winter long. Then, as soon as the soil warms up in the spring, it miraculously pushes up fresh, bright green leaves from the dirt, ready to start the whole amazing cycle all over again. Let us talk about garden aesthetics and color choices. While deep, vibrant violet is the classic look, plant breeders have developed some truly stunning varieties. The most famous dark purple variety is called Caradonna. It has almost black stems that make the purple flowers pop like neon lights. It is breathtaking. If you prefer softer colors, there are varieties that bloom in bright bubblegum pink. There are also elegant, pure white versions that look incredible glowing in the moonlight. One of the best design tricks is to buy 3 different colors and plant them in an alternating pattern along a walkway. The contrasting spikes of purple, pink, and white create a dynamic, textured look that feels very modern and high-end. Because they all have the exact same care requirements, they will all bloom at the exact same time, giving you a perfectly synchronized floral display without any extra effort on your part. Woodland Sage is also the ultimate team player in a garden bed. It is what landscapers call a fantastic companion plant. Because the flowers grow in tall vertical spikes, they provide amazing contrast to plants that have round, flat flowers. Picture a bed of classic bushy yellow roses. Now imagine surrounding those roses with bold spikes of purple sage. The contrast of yellow and purple, and the contrast of round and tall, is incredibly pleasing to the human eye. It also pairs perfectly with ornamental grasses. The soft, flowing movement of the grass against the stiff, architectural spikes of the salvia creates a modern prairie look that is very popular right now. You can also plant it next to large, daisy-like flowers, such as echinacea or black-eyed Susans. The salvia acts as the perfect supporting actor, making every other plant around it look twice as beautiful. Here is a secret that garden centers do not want you to know. You can turn one woodland sage plant into 5 new plants for absolutely free. The process is called division, and it is surprisingly easy. After a salvia plant has been growing in your yard for about 3 years, the base of the plant will get very wide and thick. Sometimes the center even starts to die out. In early spring, just as the new green shoots are appearing, you take a sharp shovel and dig the whole plant out of the ground. Then, you literally chop the root ball into 3 or 4 pieces. It is exactly like slicing a cake. Each piece just needs to have some roots on the bottom and some green shoots on top. You immediately plant those pieces back into the ground in new locations. They will establish themselves quickly and bloom that very same summer. It is the best way to get free landscaping material. No plant is totally invincible, so we need to talk about the one common problem you might face: powdery mildew. This is a fungal disease that looks like someone dusted the leaves of your plant with white baby powder. It usually happens in late summer when the weather is very humid and the air is stagnant. The good news is that it rarely kills the plant, it just makes it look ugly. The best way to beat powdery mildew is prevention. Remember how we said this plant hates wet feet? It also hates being crowded. When you plant your sage, make sure to leave at least 18 to 24 inches of empty space between each plant. This allows the summer breeze to blow through the leaves and dry them off quickly after a rainstorm. Good airflow is your best defense against fungus. If you do get mildew, just cut off the infected leaves and throw them in the trash, not the compost bin. What if you do not have a big backyard? What if you only have a sunny balcony or an apartment patio? You are in luck. Woodland sage grows exceptionally well in pots and containers. Because it is naturally drought-tolerant, it handles the dry conditions of a terracotta pot much better than most thirsty flowers. The secret to container success is the soil mix. Do not use heavy garden dirt. Buy a high-quality, lightweight potting mix and stir in a few handfuls of perlite or small gravel to ensure rapid drainage. Make absolutely sure your pot has a large drainage hole in the bottom. Place the pot in the sunniest spot you have. When you water it, soak it thoroughly until water runs out the bottom, and then do not water it again until the top 2 inches of soil feel completely dry to the touch. A large pot filled with blooming salvia is a stunning centerpiece for any outdoor seating area. Let us clear up a massive misconception about fertilizer. The garden industry spends millions of dollars trying to convince you that you need to feed your plants blue chemical water every week. Do not do this to your woodland sage. We already established that it loves poor, rocky soil. If you dump heavy, nitrogen-rich fertilizer on this plant, it will react very badly. The plant will grow incredibly fast. It will produce massive, floppy, weak green leaves. But it will barely produce any flowers at all, and the stems will be so soft that the first gust of wind will knock the whole plant over. To get the most flowers, you must employ tough love. A single light application of organic compost in the very early spring is more than enough food for the entire year. By starving the plant just a little bit, you trigger its survival instinct, which forces it to create huge amounts of colorful flowers instead of useless green foliage. We need to clarify a very common point of confusion. Woodland sage is technically in the Salvia family, but it is not the same sage you use to cook your Thanksgiving turkey. Culinary sage is a different species called Salvia officinalis. If you try to chop up the leaves of woodland sage and put them in your soup, it is not going to taste very good. It is bitter and purely ornamental. However, the aromatic quality of the garden sage is still a wonderful feature. On a hot sunny afternoon, the oils in the leaves heat up and release a subtle, woodsy, slightly piney fragrance into the air around your patio. It is a very clean, herbal scent. Whenever you are weeding nearby or doing your midsummer pruning, your hands will smell fantastic. Just remember to keep the leaves out of your kitchen and leave them in the garden where they belong. One of the most impressive things about this plant is its absolute versatility in garden design. It acts like a chameleon, blending perfectly into completely different aesthetic styles. If you love the messy, romantic look of a traditional English cottage garden, plant massive, overflowing clumps of purple sage next to soft pink peonies and climbing roses. It looks like a painting. But what if you prefer a sleek, ultra-modern architectural look? Plant single, isolated specimens of salvia in a bed of pristine white gravel, spaced evenly apart. The stiff, geometric vertical lines of the flowers look incredibly contemporary and clean. It also works perfectly in a Mediterranean-style courtyard alongside lavender and olive trees. There are very few plants in the world that can seamlessly transition from a rustic farmhouse vibe to a $1 million modern estate. Woodland sage does it effortlessly. Springtime can be a very anxious season for new gardeners. When the snow finally melts in March, you might go outside and look at your woodland sage. You will probably panic. The plant will look like a completely dead, dried up, brittle stick sticking out of the mud. You might be tempted to dig it up and throw it away. Do not touch it! This plant is a late sleeper. It waits patiently until the soil temperature is consistently warm before it decides to wake up. Usually, sometime in April, you will suddenly see tiny, bright purple or green buds forming at the very base of the old dead stems, right at the soil line. That is your signal that the plant is alive and well. At that exact moment, you can safely take your pruners and cut away all the old, dead brown sticks from last year, being careful not to step on the fresh new growth. Patience is key in the spring. Beyond just looking pretty, planting drought-tolerant perennials like Salvia nemorosa is actually a powerful environmental choice. We are living in a time where fresh water is becoming a highly precious resource. Many cities implement strict watering bans during the hottest summer months. If your yard is full of thirsty, delicate annuals, your garden will die during a drought. But by transitioning your landscape to tough, resilient plants like woodland sage, you are actively participating in water conservation. You are reducing the strain on your local water supply. You are also reducing the amount of chemical fertilizers and pesticides running off into local rivers because this plant requires neither. It is a concept called xeriscaping, which means gardening in a way that reduces or eliminates the need for supplemental water from irrigation. You can be a responsible citizen of the earth while still having the most colorful house on the block. Ultimately, the greatest benefit of adding woodland sage to your landscape is the emotional reward. Gardening is supposed to be relaxing. It is supposed to be a peaceful escape from the stress of daily life. But if you are constantly fighting to keep fragile plants alive, dealing with bugs, and dragging heavy hoses around every evening, gardening just becomes another stressful chore. Salvia nemorosa gives you your time back. It does the heavy lifting for you. You plant it once, make sure it has sunshine and drainage, and then you just get to enjoy it. You can actually sit on your patio with a cup of morning coffee, listen to the bees buzzing, watch the butterflies dance around the purple spikes, and just breathe. It brings reliable, effortless beauty into your life year after year. And in the unpredictable world of gardening, finding a plant that never lets you down is a very special thing indeed. So here is the amazing twist we have discovered today. The secret to having a gorgeous, magazine-worthy garden that blooms all summer until autumn is not working harder. It is simply choosing smarter plants. Woodland Sage proves that you can have spectacular color, attract beautiful butterflies, and survive droughts, all by doing less work and applying a little tough love. From the brilliant Chelsea chop to its incredible winter survival, this plant is truly a gardening miracle. To quickly recap, give it full blazing sun, plant it in well-draining soil, do not overwater it, and give it a quick trim in midsummer to keep the flowers coming until October. Thank you so much for watching this complete guide. If you learned something new today and want to master your garden, please hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a like to support the channel, and here is my question for you to answer in the comments. What is the most stubborn, hard-to-kill plant you currently have in your yard? Let us start a conversation down below. Happy gardening, and I will see you in the next video.